I watched every single Dragon Ball movie, every one of them. That's 21 movies and almost 22 hours of film. That's a lot of Dragon Ball. And I watched them all for this video, so you should subscribe. And let's get into the video. The first movie. Movie spoilers and general story spoilers. Be careful. Right off the bat, I'm gonna give it C tier. It's a retelling of the original story, slightly altered, but most of it's just the same. It follows Goku on his journey, meeting all of his friends like Bulma, Oolong, Yamcha, and even Master Roshi. Original Dragon Ball is definitely more focused on the adventure than the actual action. That's not really a bad thing. It's just different from the Z movies that you'll see later on the list. There's a lot of comedy in this movie, a lot of just like effortless, funny moments. It's definitely just a good time movie. Sleeping Princess. I'm gonna give it B tier. I think this is better than the first Dragon Ball film. It has a little bit more focus on the action, but it's still a really good adventure movie. You know, they just introduced this crazy place called the Devil's Hand and send Goku and Krillin, and that's about it. Some really cool things do happen in here, like we get Great Ape Goku, which is definitely cool, and we're also introduced to Launch, who's a cool character. Very similar to the first one, it is an alternate continuity retelling. Mystical Adventure. This is the alternate continuity retelling of the martial arts tournament. A lot of it is cut out. Obviously, you know, it's only 50-minute special, but it's really just like Goku versus Tao and some preamble. I'm gonna put it in C. I don't think it's like crazy. It's just an alternate retelling once again, and I don't think it like really stands out. There's definitely some good moments in there. We have the Arali crossover, and she's just a really interesting character. We have that really good meme, the Tao with the beam, where he like throws the beam and then jumps on it. It's just funny. I don't know. It's really goofy. It is, you know, a pretty standard retelling of that saga, the martial arts tournament, but we don't really get to see the whole tournament. We just really get to see Goku and Tao fight at the end. And Tao, honestly, like, he's kind of a bitch. I don't know. Tao sucks. He lies and runs. I don't know. Tao sucks. Chala. Head chala. On to the Dragon Ball Z movies. First one is Dead Zone, and I'm gonna slap it right in A tier, because this movie is actually really good. Ramping up into Z, we have to see something crazy right off the bat, and what's better than an immortality wish? I don't know. This is the high stakes that I was looking for in an action-packed movie for Dragon Ball Z. A wish for immortality. That's honestly like the best wish that you can ask for in terms of like Dragon Ball. Goku's now an adult. We have Krillin, we have Gohan, and Piccolo. Earth's warriors are actually pretty mighty now. At first, I thought the villain was pretty lame. He really just wants to fill the world with evil. That's a direct quote. That's actually his goal, is to fill the world with evil. I'm usually not a big fan of villains that just blindly want to take over the world. It feels lazy, it feels cliche, but this is Dragon Ball, who kind of set up a lot of cliches. But they do bring it full circle. The villain has a power to open up a gate to this thing called the Dead Zone, which is basically just an inescapable, indefinite prison. And how would somebody beat an immortal guy? Oh, maybe that. Maybe the Dead Zone. So it's pretty ironic. He gets beaten by his own power, and right after he made himself immortal. That would suck. That would really suck. And it's ironic because that's how his father died, and his father is the reason he's going for this goal of taking over the world. You know, at first I thought it was lame, but they brought it back in a good way. There's definitely some effortless, funny scenes that happen in these Dragon Ball movies, and this movie isn't an exception to that. Like, drunk Gohan is going around dancing with imaginary dragons, and he pisses on Krillin. World's Strongest. Give it B tier. This movie's got some good action the whole way through. The Bio Warriors are interesting. They each have like a unique power. There's this yellow guy that has like a really bouncy belly, and he can like bounce back Kamehameha, and that's pretty cool. And there's this other dude with like electric whips, and that guy's pretty cool. The final fight was pretty solid too, with like the big mech guy, and it finished off with a pretty hype, you know, attack. The Spirit Bomb. But I will say there's a lot less comedy in this movie. There's not really that many funny scenes. There's a couple funny scenes with like Bulma and Roshi, but not too much. It doesn't have to have every single aspect, right? Like adventure, comedy, and action. As long as some parts of it are in there and those parts are really good, that's really what matters. Tree of Might. This movie goes hard. I'm gonna give it A tier. This is my favorite movie so far. They introduce a Saiyan as the bad guy, Turles. The movie opens up with our boys going on a camping trip. The forest that they're in gets burned down, and they use the Dragon Balls to wish the forest back to, you know, its original, saving the animals, and Gohan meets Higher Dragon, which is really cool because I like Gohan and Higher Dragon. But the real reason I like this setup so much is because it closes the door to Shenron being able to save their asses. I definitely think introducing Saiyans as the antagonist is a really good route to go because they're some of the scariest foes that we could potentially see at this point. Turles plans on planting a giant tree that bears fruit that makes them much stronger. The fights were solid. The only gripe I have with this movie is that it was back-to-back spirit bombs. This one was slightly different. It took the power from the tree, so, you know, it looks different. It has a different power level, but ending it with a spirit bomb back-to-back, it's kind of lame, but it makes sense because these were only like a year apart. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Lord Slug. I'll give it B tier. The action's good, some cool transformations, and Slug's a pretty cool villain. The main reason I don't love this movie and why I gave it B tier, I just don't really like the ending. I thought it was kind of cheap. It's okay. It comes full circle. It makes sense. But I still found it like kind of weird, kind of lame to be honest. Basically at the start, Gohan is whistling and Piccolo's like, "Ooh, knock it off. I don't like that." And then at the end, they use it to their advantage because they have super hearing and he's a super Namekian who has super hearing. And I thought it was kind of just lame. I don't know. But there's definitely a lot of good things in this movie. We get to see Super Saiyan for the first time, even though it's like a weird form of Super Saiyan where it's like not honed in. He doesn't actually get blonde hair. It's just like an aura around him. But King Kai says it's Super Saiyan, so hey, it's Super Saiyan, but it's kind of weird. And once again, it ends with another spirit bomb. It's slightly different. I know it's slightly different, but it's still kind of lame. Slug is a cool villain though. They gave him a neat backstory. Gohan and Piccolo fighting his henchmen was pretty good. And the actual fight against like Goku and Slug was pretty good too. So the fighting was good. And yeah, I liked it. But there was not a lot of comedy. There was my favorite scene in the whole movie though, was the opening. It's kind of comedy. It was just Gohan and Higher Dragon dancing. I mean, look at that. You can't not love that, right? It's good. It's content. Cooler's Revenge. The first of two Cooler movies back to back. Now, I will say I like this one more than the second one, but I think to fully get the most enjoyment out of these movies, these Cooler movies, I think you should just watch them back to back. Anyway, the first one, I'm gonna give it S tier. I think that this deserves to be the first S tier movie on the list. I'm gonna be honest, shit's really heating up now. This is post Frieza, and who better to introduce than Frieza's brother? It's Cooler. He's like Frieza, but he's cooler. Cooler's pretty badass. He's got a good transformation. It's cool. I mean, my boy's looking like Predator from the movie Predator. We see Super Saiyan for real this time. It's very good. You know, the hype is built up and it's not really a letdown. It's very good the whole way through. And the final blasts are crazy. Like actually just crazy. And there's not like a lot of comedy in this one as well, but there was one really good line that I'm gonna leave you with.
I'm the Bean Daddy this time. Bean Daddy!
Another one, Cooler's Return. And I'm just gonna put this one in B tier. It doesn't feel right to give it lower than that because I liked the first one so much. Somehow, Cooler clinged to life. Now he's a mechanical cooler, metal cooler. He's a super cooler. This movie has Vegeta for the first time in the films, in the, you know, the movies. Cooler is upgraded with a lot of different new abilities. You know, he has instant regeneration. He has an army of infinite clones that he can summon. And that scene was actually really cool. They finally like beat him and think they're done, and there's 100 of them, and you lose. Yeah, I mean, what are you gonna do now, right? They got captured. I'm not a big fan of how it ended. Start to absorb their power and their Saiyans, so they have, you know, probably nearly infinite stocks of power. So it just overruns the big Getty star, blows it all up. Sure, right? Next, we got the Android 13 movie. This one is pretty good film. I'm gonna give it A tier. This one has some really good fights, but it also has a lot of everything. We have a trio of Super Saiyans here for the first time. We have Goku, Gohan, Trunks, all fighting. I think Vegeta's there too. The little androids, like 13 and 14, I think. You know, the little guy and the big guy. They're kind of lame. They have some all right fights here and there, but they do, you know, get bested. and then Android 13 absorbs them and becomes this crazy Android 13, and that's when shit really hits the fan. Shit starts to go crazy. And then it becomes like a really Dragon Ball Z movie where, you know, everybody's just holding off for Goku to charge up his spirit bomb. One thing that I do really like about this movie is the trash talk. I think that that's something that was done really well in this.
Don't you lecture me with your $30 haircut. Goku dies.
Android 13 is out here just shit-talking them the entire time, acting like he's literal God. And he is pretty unbeatable until he gets spirit bombed and dies. Next, we got the first Broly film. The first one of 4? That's a lot of Brolys. This one is a good one. It is the original Broly film. It does lack a bit in a lot of aspects. You know, there's not a lot of story. There's definitely some, but it's more so about the fight, and the fight is hyped up and does not really disappoint. The fight is pretty crazy the whole way through. Let's go ahead and give this one A tier. This movie gets interesting and stays interesting really fast. They introduce new Saiyans, Paragus and Broly, and right off the bat, Paragus seems hella sus. He seems like he's probably gonna be the bad guy, but he's not actually. He's really just harboring the actual bad guy because he's old, decrepit. But his son Broly is terrifying. He is really, really terrifying. We have Paragus using his Broly control-y device, keeping Broly at, you know, a subpar power level so he doesn't just like blow up the universe. It's actually really interesting comparing this with the new one because they do have very similar outlines of the backstory, but they give it to us in different ways. In this one, you're introduced to Paragus first, and then you're given his backstory later. This way, at first, he seems like the villain, and it doesn't really seem like it's really justified. He's kind of just like aggro at, you know, Vegeta for no reason. But in the new one, we see backstory first, and we see how, you know, we see why he wants revenge on Vegeta. I think it's better done in the new one, but in this one, it really makes you, you know, dislike these characters a little bit more, which is cool. But in the new one, they're canonizing Broly, so they want Broly to be likable. They give you all the information first before you really get to, you know, pick if you like the guy or not. Movie goes crazy though. The fights are insane. I mean, let's be real. That's always been the Broly thing, is that the fights are insane. The dude is insane. He's a monster. He's so absurdly strong that Vegeta loses his entire will to fight and refuses to fight. Once again, Broly kind of just got hacked out of the game, and that's really just how it is. He does survive though because he's back in 2 movies. We will be talking about a different movie next, but then we're back to Broly. Bojack. No. Bojack. I'll put it in B for Bojack. Goku is dead. This means that if things get out of hand, we can't just go, oh no, let's hold off for Goku, because Goku's dead. Now, with that being said, he does kind of help a little bit at the end via Shenron, but hey, listen, I'm still gonna give this win to Gohan. The setup for this movie is pretty basic, but effective. After a little bit of preamble from the tournament, we have our finalists here: Gohan, Krillin, and Trunks. And of course, you know, you gotta have Sumo Guy, right? Random Sumo Guy. They then go to their individual battle zones to fight alien fighters, the Bojack crew. The Bojack crew is really cool. They all have pretty solid designs, and also they have cool background, or at least Bojack himself does. This is something that you'll hear a couple more times during this video, but I like ever-changing scenes in the battling. There's a lot of examples of this in Dragon Ball movies. You're fighting, and then they go from this place to this place to this place to this place, and they go through multiple different tunnels and caves and chasms, ocean. And this movie does it really well because each individual battle has their own battle zone, and then they go to another battle zone at the end, and there's like 6 scene changes. It gives you, you know, a little bit of a refreshing taste. The final fight between Gohan and Bojack is really cool. Maybe a little power of friendship, but hey, it's okay. It's a breath of fresh air, not just being, hey, let's hold off this bad guy until Goku gets here. So, you know, we love to see it. All right, back to Broly. Broly 2, baby. I'm gonna put this bad boy in C tier. Here's my reasoning. It had some good action, and I love Goten and Trunks. Like, they're some of my favorite characters. They're just like so casual, and it really goes to show that these kids are insanely powerful. It's literally Broly, and Trunks is out here mooning the dude to taunt him. Like, what? Like, what? It's Broly. I know they don't know him, but like, it's Broly, dude. He's a Saiyan. You're just gonna take this guy so lightly. It's crazy. But Broly is really, really toned down in this movie. That's the reason I give it C tier. That's the big reason I give it C tier. We do get to, you know, see Videl for the first time and adult Gohan for the first time in the movies, which is really cool, and we really get a spotlight on Goten and Trunks, which once again is cool. I do like this one, but yeah, it's lame compared to the first one. And speaking of lame compared to the first one, we have Broly. And this is, in my opinion, the worst one of the three. Of course, you know, Broly is actually beaten. Now he's actually defeated this time. He came back through biotech. He's not Broly. He's the recreation of Broly via a little bit of his DNA. Once again, toned down. And this time he's toned down to a goopy mess. We get to see a very unlikely squad of Goten, Trunks, and Android 18. It's unlikely. It's definitely very unlikely, but it's very strong. Unfortunately, we still don't really get to see Gotenks in action here. One of the things that's really funny about this film is it really encapsulates Broly, right? You beat him, he gets back up. You beat him, he gets back up. You drop a planet on him, on his planet, both planets explode, he gets back up. He's just here later. Well, like, what? So, and that really happened in this movie. You beat him, and now he's the size of a building. You beat him, and now he's the size of 2 buildings. But they had to find an interesting solution to it and hacks him out each time, which was kind of cool. It's a cool movie, but I would say it's the lamest of the 3 Broly movies in the Dragon Ball Z collection. This is my favorite one, Fusion Reborn. This one, I'm a little biased to, but I'm gonna give it S tier. I watched this movie as a kid on TV. It was my introduction to the Dragon Ball Z universe. I mean, I literally thought it was the most badass piece of thing that I've ever seen in my life at that time. Janemba's insane. Gogeta's insane. There's not a lot of story. That's definitely something that some people will be like, oh wow, this is your favorite movie. So basically, what the setup is for this movie is Janemba is the culmination of thousands of years of evil spirit energy. He is created and then breaks all of the dimensions, the gates to dimensions, bringing back all of the dead to the world. But this sets up for a really funny side story where literally Hitler's army comes back to life and Gotenks fights them, which is funny. That's a funny side story. It's done very comically. It has the thick cartoon lines around it. It's like a cartoon-esque comic relief from our crazy fight that Janemba and Goku are having. There's 2 factors that I love about this movie. One is Janemba himself. This character is insane. I will explain in just a moment. I want to talk about the other one first. This other one is about the scenes, the battle scenes. I was talking about this earlier. This is something that I find really, really cool in these Dragon Ball movies. Janemba creates this amazing arena, basically, for them to fight in. It has these colorful giant beans everywhere that are barriers, and it's just wild. It's vibrant. It looks so good. Everything is so cool looking. And then in this hellscape that they're fighting in, there's a dramatic scene change. Over and over and over, there's a new setting every 2 seconds. There's a giant floating cone made up of red liquid that gets sliced up and keeps those slices. Goku and Vegeta get flung into this pile of massive spiky balls. There's an area with fixed large floating cubes. There's just so many different scene changes in this 35-minute fight that just keep it action-packed, refreshing, new scene change, new power up. It's just really cool. It's ever changing. Then the other aspect is Janemba himself. Janemba is this insane character that whips out new move after new move after new move, builds barriers and then throws them down. And then he summons 90 clones of himself. Janemba is sitting here punching through dimensions. He creates clones of his enemy and mirrors their attacks. I mean, he sent a Kamehameha from Goku at Goku. And then he transforms and then shows more powers. He has this crazy demon sword that can shoot projectiles. He can stretch his arms like Piccolo. I mean, this dude literally has every single thing. He can shift himself into dimensions to avoid any attack. And then it takes Gogeta. I mean, Gogeta is crazy strong. He's supposed to be the strongest warrior literally ever. And it takes Gogeta to beat Janemba. It's just really good. My favorite Dragon Ball movie. I love it. Wrath of the Dragon. This is the last Dragon Ball Z movie before the new animation. This one's pretty good. I'm gonna give it A tier. This one has the most storyline of any of the Dragon Ball Z movies. This movie does a great job at storytelling. It's very much so a mystery the whole way through. You really never know who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. The backstory between our new characters, Tapion and Hoi, is actually really cool, and the High Rudigarn monster is actually really cool as well. Just the mystery of learning who these characters are and what their deal is pretty entertaining. And then Harudegarn himself in the actual fights has this transformation, and he's so powerful. It actually seems like impossible to beat this guy. You can't hit him. I mean, you can't hit him. He's a phantom. He's a phantom demon. He's literally Danny Phantom. We get the first real SS3 Gotenks here. We have Gotenks fighting Hitler's army, but he doesn't go to SS3 because he just doesn't need to. I like the ending. It's a neatly wrapped up ending. You know, nothing goes too bad here. And then Trunks gets his iconic sword here from Tapion, which is actually really cool because when I watched this movie, I was like, oh, cool. Next, we got Path of Power. And I'm not even going to talk about this movie that long. I'm going to put it right to C tier. It's a pretty basic retelling like the original Dragon Ball. There's not really much to say. It's an enjoyable watch, but when you're like me and watched it back to back with the other Dragon Ball movies, it felt like a lot of information that you just received. So maybe that's why I put it in C. Next, we have the GT movie. I'm gonna slap it in B tier. The last movie that I watched was the Harudegarn movie that we just talked about before watching this one. So it was a really crazy change of pace, right? You have SS3 Goku, you have these Phantom Demon guy, you have all these crazy things happening. And then you go to GT Heroes Legacy and you're watching Goku Jr. barely able to go Super Saiyan and stay conscious. But the cool thing about this was that it really just took more of an adventure route, really similar to how like the original Dragon Ball movies were and how original Dragon Ball was. It's more so about the adventure, it's less about the action. And that was a pretty cool change of pace. Goku Jr. is a pretty like mid character. He literally gets bullied, but he is definitely lovable. I felt really bad when bad things were happening to him. And I actually felt like, come on, bud, let's get through this together, man. I'll give you my spirit energy, dog. Everything was neatly wrapped up at the end. I did like how it went full circle with Goku Jr. receiving the 4-star ball from his great grandpa, similar to how Goku did at the beginning of Dragon Ball. Good watch, but incredibly different from the Z movies that I just watched. Now we're on to Battle of the Gods, which definitely feels like it should be a Dragon Ball Super movie, but it's just a Dragon Ball Z movie masked with the new animation style, which, let me say, is crazy. I'm gonna slap this right into S tier. This is an incredible movie. It builds hype so well for this Beerus the Destroyer and Whis, new characters. Their introduction is so hype. I mean, it's just so cool. You go to their planet, the atmosphere is just so cool. The fights in this is really, really good. Once again, changing scenes. Goku and Beerus are fighting. They go from this scene to this different scene over the ocean, and then they blast through it, and then there's a giant chasm, and then they blast back up through it. Now they're fighting in the sky, and it's just a really, really enjoyable fight scene. One thing that I don't like that much about this movie, but it's okay, it gets a pass, is the transformation, the Goku into Super Saiyan God transformation. I think it's kind of lame. It just doesn't really feel like that much thought was put into it. Oh, you can become stronger by getting the power of 5 other Saiyans put into you. I don't know, it felt kind of lazy. One of my favorite scenes was when Beerus was saying, oh, you don't like your power? And Goku was like, no, I don't like this power because it's not mine. Okay, yeah. That's what Goku would say there. And another thing that I really liked about this movie is that it didn't take away from the actual comedy of the movie. And most of that comic relief is actually derived from them just being so casual around gods. Drunk Bulma is just like, hey guys, do you want to have a little drinky poo and go dancing? Beerus is breakdancing. Why is it so casual? It's funny. It's funny. The other thing this movie does particularly well is build hype for the future. And of course, that was what it was meant to do, but that's a good thing because it means it succeeded in doing so. It's pretty wild. Frieza's back, baby. A tier. Frieza's return to canon is pretty cool. It has been a really long time though, and now he's really behind. So he has to, go and train for a little while. That's actually one of my favorite clips in the entire movie, is when he says that he trained for 4 months for the first time in his life. He's never had to train before because he was always broken. Now Goku's broken, so yeah, you have to train, bud. I think it was a good idea to bring him back. Frieza is one of the most iconic villains in anime, honestly. I think it makes sense to bring him back. This movie looks really good as well. It has that new animation. It's very, very clean. Fights in here are really good, and they hype up a lot of characters instantly. Of course, we have hype up on Frieza being brought back to life and then training, and then we also have the hype up from Goku and Vegeta training with Whis in one of the starting scenes. And their fights are going to be incredibly good. And they are. They build up this hype and it doesn't disappoint. Before the juicy Goku and Frieza fight, we do have some other fights. We have these Z fighters against Frieza Army, which is pretty cool. They have to take on like over 100 guys each. It was kept pretty short and sweet, which is nice because it could have gotten really repetitive really quick. And of course, Vegeta got some time to shine too. Phase 1 of the Goku Frieza fight was pretty good. But then when we go into Goku Frieza Part 2, they show their new forms. We have Goku Blue, which is Super Saiyan God, and then we also have Golden Frieza. So we have new forms, but also really, really good fights with these new forms. And then we get to the part of the movie that I hate, that I think everybody probably hated when they saw. Cue the clip. Oh, why? Goku just deflected like 10 beams that would destroy a planet, and then he gets felled by a common ray gun. That is a quote. That was not a special ray gun. That was not a super ray gun. That is what Frieza says. Felled by a common ray gun. Come on. What was that? Great action, and it's great bringing Frieza back into the mix. We're happy to see it. Broly, the first movie classified as a Dragon Ball Super movie. S tier. This movie is crazy. We now have Broly in canon. When Dragon Ball Super comes back, he's probably going to be an arc. I'm not sure for sure, but probably. The fight scenes are unmatched. I mean, actually just unmatched. Fast-paced, moving through air. We have crazy air fights. They're insane. Even a moment where Broly goes into first-person mode and we see what he's seeing, and dude, it is wild. I thought that part was so cool. It's insanely cool. Then we have multiple change of settings. You know, that's something that I like. I've talked about that. You guys know that by now. That's something I love. The Arctic, and then they blow up that Arctic, and now it's a volcano. And then you have Broly's backstory, actually good. We get to start with Broly backstory, so we get to develop this love for this character already. We feel bad for this dude that was exiled and then like harbored and having to eat bugs for years and years. You really feel bad for Broly actually. And then we actually get like the high def Planet Vegeta backstories. And then we have Gogeta fusion. We have Broly's transformation. Dude, these scenes are so insane actually. The only thing that I didn't like in the movie, the only one, was the Gogeta song. In the background, the whole song is just like, Gogeta, Gogeta, Broly, Broly. That song was trash. In the Lord Slug movie, they played Stupefy by Disturbed. Oh, wow. Like, what are you? It was weird. It's fine. It's just goofy now. You know what I mean? I don't know if that aged that well, but I guess that's probably once again from the English dub. So whatever. I'm back from the theater. It was pretty good. I did like it. With that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and put it in B tier. It had a lot of good things, but it had a lot of bad things. Not quite bad things, just things that I didn't really like. There's a couple good things and a couple bad, and we're gonna say them generalized, and then we're gonna go into the actual movie. Yeah, starting it off, Piccolo and Gohan being the spotlight of the movie is cool. Not just a Goku movie, you know, Goku just going and beating everything. We've seen it. The other good thing is I really like Gamma, the superhero androids. I think they're really cool. I really like Pan. You know, being trained by Piccolo and really getting like a bit of a spotlight was cool. Gohan getting a redemption. I'm all for Gohan getting redemption, but this didn't really feel as earned as it should have. I definitely think it could have been done a little bit better. I'll explain that a little bit more in a minute. Another really good thing is the comedy. I felt like there were a lot of scenes where I laughed. Now for the bad, because there's some bad. The antagonist felt pretty lackluster. It's a cool idea in theory, but in actual execution, I felt like it was pretty mid. Also, like, let's talk about the CGI. No. Don't do that again. I'm okay with the CGI being incorporated in, like how it was in Broly, where, you know, the fight scenes were about 50% CGI and 50% anime. And I definitely think the CGI is bad. I just don't think it's very good. It doesn't do anything good for it. You know, a couple times I felt like, oh, this doesn't look that bad. And then they moved and talked, and I then disliked it again. It just didn't really work a lot of the time. Like, there were some just lanky and more so like weird movements that happened, and every time they talked, like, I mean, honestly, just talking in general in it was pretty bad. It really just felt like a video game cutscene. I don't want to be too harsh on it because it did look better than I was expecting it to, but it didn't look better than what I wanted it to look like. Let's go ahead and spoiler alert. If you haven't seen the movie, don't continue watching unless you don't care to see the movie. I'm going to talk about the ending and the actual parts of the movie that you should watch. All right, it's just me and you. You already watched the movie. We both have now watched the movie. Okay, good. Let's talk about it. What was that? What was Gohan's transformation, dude? What? Red eyes, gray hair? It makes you think it's UI. It's not UI, probably. It didn't really make sense. Was it just rage, Gohan, new transformation? Is he gonna tap into that again? Like, I need some answers here. What was that? Also, was that even canon? Is like that considered canon? Because it was like 3 years from now. You know, Pan is 3, and Gotenks and Trunks were like awkward teens. Even at the end, Piccolo says, "Yo, Gohan, what was that?" Gohan says, "I don't know." That's all we get? That's all we get? Really? I don't know about that one. Also, Super Piccolo, or Orange Piccolo, if you want to go by his name, but Super Piccolo. That was cool. That was a hype reveal. Like, that was a really, really cool reveal. I didn't like Cell Max. It never really felt that scary. I didn't think he was gonna win. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was Beerus Planet scenes. Those were great. A lot of really good comedy in there. The Chilai Beerus storyline, that was really funny. Seeing Broly in the Super universe was great. I'm really excited to see more Broly in Super. The comedy was good. The action was pretty good. It would have been a lot better without the CGI. There were good transformations. Mediocre bad guy, but some good new characters. Overall, pretty good film. Well, that's all the movies. That's all I got to talk about. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and subscribe.